I'm just inviting in our lovely guest of the day.
Hello.
Oop, there she is.
Hello. Long time no see.
Good to see. I know, right? We were literally just on a Zoom call now. So yeah, I mean, Elaine, if people let us, if we didn't have anything else to do during the day, honestly, we would probably be on the phone or, drinking coffee all day, wouldn't we? Literally all day. I mean, we kind of already do that, and we have other things to do. So, can you imagine if we didn't? Yeah, one day. Elaine, thank you so much for joining. As always, such a pleasure to have you. You're such a key person of influence in the home staging world, a key person of everything home staging related for the HSA and the functioning of the association, our growth and our development and recognition. A key person for my mental health as well as the founder of the HSA. So you are all sorts of amazing. So thank you so much for being here. It really is a pleasure.
Well,
I think
a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. As always, to talk about all things home staging. I mean, we just love it, don't we? And
we just love it. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, obviously, as I was saying just before you got in, you probably heard me talking. Anyone in the UK that does anything to do with home staging and to a certain extent property must have heard something about you at some point, if not a lot, because you've won several awards. You are the founder of several companies, and you've got a property investment background. You've got an amazing, one of the most renowned, largest, I would say one of the largest home staging businesses in the UK. You're a best-selling author. So, I mean, the list goes on. So people must have heard about you one way or another. But in case you've got people that are either living under a rock or are not in the UK or not following us, maybe you want to give a very, very quick introduction, introduce yourself, say what you've been up to lately, if you had any new awards since you last spoke, or but yeah, just a brief one, so we can then get started with our conversation, because it's one that I'm very much looking forward to discussing today. I think it's going to be a very, very
well. I'm really
one.
looking forward to talking about this, because I think growth is a huge topic in the staging industry across the world. As you know, I've had more contact this year via the IHAS, through the International Association, with stages in Europe and also in the US, and this seems to be a huge topic. And so my background is staging premium property in mostly outside London, so kind of big country homes essentially, and I fell into it, as you rightly said, through my investment business. Because my background previously was in education and particularly in business coaching, then I find myself very drawn to understand what other people are doing, and also to be able to give back to other people. I'm currently, one of my one-to-one coaches at the moment is actually somebody in Melbourne in Australia, who's just reached out, having seen some of the podcasts and things that I've been doing, and said, I really want to move into running a staging business, but I want a growth business in Melbourne. Can you help me? So that's really exciting.
And Melbourne,
obviously, I need to go visit, right? Because
yeah, I'm sure quite different Melbournes we're talking about. Yeah, for those that don't know, Elaine's business is set in Melbourne.
Mine's in Melbourne, Derbyshire, and this guy is in Melbourne, in Australia. So yeah. So really lovely to have people. Yeah. So I guess that's where I get very excited now, just hearing other people's stories, really, about what they want from their staging businesses.
Yeah, and I think you became a reference in this sort of topic amongst so many others, but people have seen what you have built with Lemon and Lime Interiors, and they obviously turned to you very naturally to try to find out more about how to how to grow their businesses, how to scale their businesses. And yeah, this is a perfect hook. Let's get started. So yeah, Elaine, I'm sure you have seen everywhere several times. I have as well, and I think more frequently this past year or so, people saying, and not necessarily just home staging, but obviously today we're going to focus on that. I want to scale my business. Oh, I want to start a business so I can scale it. Oh, what do I need to do to scale my business? Scale. It's like it's the hype of the moment, just using that word. It's like someone, they just learned the word now and they want to I want to scale the business. What does it mean to scale a business? Is it just more revenue, like year on year, or does it have to be like you need to have a larger team, or is it just literally making more money? Is it having more stock, more inventory in the case of a home staging business? What does it mean to scale a business?
And I think you're exactly right, Paloma. What does it mean, and what do different people mean by that, and what do they expect out of that? I think it is, as you rightly say, a word that's being bandied around a lot at the moment. I think what happened during COVID is that more people sat down by themselves for much longer than they ordinarily would. They weren't able to go into their offices and so on, and thought about, what do I need to do for life change? And lots more people started setting up businesses. And then people look at the kind of what are called the unicorn businesses, the businesses that go into the billions quite quickly, which tends to be in this country, tech businesses, and think, oh, wow, it must be easy to scale a business into the billions. And I think that what's really important at the outset is that is understanding, first of all, what you want out of a business, because to scale a business means basically growing a business. Now, in a staging world, there are a number of factors that make that quite complicated for somebody who is what we would recognize as the typical person starting a staging business. And the factors, so when you start out in a staging business, I think what happens typically is that you think, oh, it would be lovely to be able to stage a few properties. Maybe I'll start with occupieds, and you buy a few accessories, a few bits of, maybe a few small pieces of furniture, some artwork and so on, and go into occupied homes and help people really style their homes ahead of marketing for sale. And then many people think, oh, it would be lovely to do some vacant properties as well. So buy perhaps a little bit more furniture. Most people, including us to start with, will buy retail to begin with without having big trade accounts. And we'll use that furniture then to put into an empty property and earn revenue from the rental on the furniture. And so now you've scaled your business from just doing a few occupied stagings into buying some furniture. You've now got some stock into doing vacant properties. The next steps become more and more complex, because the more properties that you do, so the more revenue, the more turnover, and people do confuse turnover with profit, and will also confuse gross profit with net profit. So understanding all of that's really important. But in order to get more turnover, to generate more turnover in most staging businesses, you have to have more furniture. Now, most people's pricing models are based on a percentage of the furniture, or the number of times they think they can use the furniture to rent it before they start making a profit. But, of course, when we buy furniture, we have to put the full capital cost of the furniture into the business in order to buy it. And that's expensive, and that really impacts cash flow. So you have to have enough money in a staging business to buy lots of furniture if you want to increase your furniture rental revenue. So it would be a kind of a simple version of that. What then happens in a staging business people decide, and we've seen it, we saw it recently, and very sadly, a very well-established business, staging business, has gone into liquidation, and their model was based on what seems to be quite common when people start out, in having a relatively low profit model of doing staging. So it's what we would refer to as the kind of the cheap end of staging. You're buying relatively inexpensive furniture and doing it at quite low cost. And there is
and ideally on volume, right? They aim on doing
but
lots
you have to do, if you're doing low profit, you have to be doing high volume. Or you just have to decide that, well, I only want 2 or 3 jobs in the year, or a dozen jobs in the year, and if I'm earning £1,000 out of each of them as profit, then that's actually enough. But and those are the kind of the hobby businesses, and in every industry has them. Staging seems to attract a lot of hobby businesses, but even so, if you're doing that kind of business, you've still got to be sure that you've got the right furniture for the next property. And you're not going to, and you haven't got furniture stuck in a property, because of course, furniture's staying in until exchange, which is the normal model. If it's stuck there, you have to go out and buy another lot of furniture when the next project comes along. Well, where's the money coming from that? And then the other things about scaling, as you grow bigger, you have to think about, well, how am I going to grow a team? Because you can't any longer just scaling the business, do everything yourself. Now, your passion, and very often in staging, somebody's passion is about actually doing the staging. Doing that lovely bit where you're arranging the furniture, you're changing things around, you're making things look really beautiful. In my experience, that's what probably 90% of the stages I come across have been driven by to set up a staging business. We get so many CVs that start off with, I love interiors, I'd love to come and work for you. Honestly, I put them in the bin. Because running a staging business is not about loving interiors. It's about being in the warehouse halfway through the night going, where on earth is the right piece for that? How can I make that work? That's all I've got left. I can't afford to go out and buy any more furniture. Where's my transport team? Why is that van got a flat tire when it's due out first thing tomorrow morning? There's a whole raft of things. Have we got the right policies in place? Because as soon as you get 5 employees, you have to, by legally in the UK, you have to have a whole raft of policies that cover what you do. You can't scale a business unless you have processes around what you do, because you're no longer, as a business owner, going to be able to go and do the staging at every business. So you have to create a way of doing lemon and lime staging that you can teach to anybody that's working for you. So we have a very clear model. This is how we stage. This is what it needs to look like. This is the lemon and lime way of doing things, so that we can replicate that and get other people to replicate that on our behalf in multiple properties. So if we've got lots of properties going on in a week, then the same quality of staging is still happening without me being anywhere near any of the properties.
And again, obviously, Elaine, if you wanted to be near, you would have built it in a way that someone else would do the things that you're currently doing, say the sales, the business development, etc. So you could do that. So I think it's a matter as well of organizing the business in a way that allows you to do what you would like to do, as long as the other areas are covered. But let's not fool ourselves and think that a home staging business can be run just by fluffing cushions. As lovely as that would be, unfortunately, that's not how it works.
And as a business owner,
right,
ultimately, you carry responsibility for the business. So a recent example that we've been dealing with, and many stages, as they begin to grow a business, will say, well, I'm going to use contractors. I'm not going to employ anybody. I will use contractors when I need them because it's more cost effective and I don't have the same responsibility for them. My take on that is that even if they're contractors, legally, by employment law, you still have the same responsibility for them. So we had an example in the early part of this year where we were using a driver who was a contractor to do driving and just moving furniture around. And he'd come from a driving agency and was working for us, more or less full time in the week, but we didn't need him every week. And he went with one of my employed staff to go and collect a set of warehouse steps, platform steps, that we could reach the top rack in the warehouse, that had been dumped essentially by the supplier at the bottom of our drive, which is about 200 yards from the warehouse. And he trapped his finger. Just not a massive injury, no big deal really, but he trapped his finger. And we have now had to pay out an insurance claim to him for the damage to his finger because it exacerbated an existing previous injury on that finger, because we didn't have, at that point, a risk assessment in place for those warehouse steps. Now, the reason we didn't have a risk assessment for those warehouse steps is because we never clapped eyes on them. They weren't due to be delivered until much later that day when the team were all in the warehouse, and they were due to be delivered, assembled by the supplier inside the warehouse. None of those things happened by the supplier. But because our contractor trapped his finger, we've had to pay out a liability on an insurance claim. So all of those things, when you're scaling a business, people think about, the lovely bits of doing more projects, getting more revenue. There's a whole raft of stuff that goes behind it. And even if you still want to do the staging end of the business, basically, if you're scaling, you can't, because you get pulled away to deal with, as the business owner, you have to deal with all of these things, the insurances, the policies, the risk assessments, the profit and loss, all of it. It becomes your responsibility. So whether I would strongly suggest that if you want to carry on doing the staging in your own business, that actually a much better model of that is to join a bigger organisation, either as an employee or as a franchisee, or to be brought into a bigger business or partially brought into a bigger business. There are all kinds of models that allow you to carry on doing staging, but mostly it's not scaling. You're scaling as part of another group or part of a bigger business.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Elaine, if one still wants to scale their business, even after all of these lovely things you've just mentioned that really don't sound very exciting, but it is what it is, right? I mean,
I think it's really exciting because it's challenging. It's, but I almost never go to staging.
Yeah. And I think obviously we can't just expect everything to be all roses. There will be downsides to everything, but there's also good things about it. So I think it's a matter of seeing, is scaling for you? If it is, great. What would you say would be the step by step to define whether scaling is for you, and then how to actually scale? Does it start with a business plan that has room for scaling? After the business plan, what would be the next step, and then the next one? What would you recommend?
Well, I think first of all, yes, of course, you have to start with a business plan, and that's the case whether you're intending to scale or not. There are three types of business really, and I think you have to be very clear when you start out which type of business you're going to have. Whether you're going to have a hobby business where you're doing it as a sideline, you're making extra money out of it, whether you've got a full-time job or whether it's a secondary income, or as for many stages, I think you're doing it alongside a role as a full-time mother or carer. So if it's a sideline, then, and you're making some PIN money essentially, then that's one version, and that needs to feature in your business plan. The second version is the lifestyle business, where actually it is providing an income for you. That's quite, but the chances are in staging that if you're going to generate enough income for a lifestyle business, so it's paying your bills, if you like, then you will already have employees by that stage. So how are you going to capitalise? Where's the money coming from to buy furniture stock and to start employing people along the lines there, and along the lines of how do you then put all the processes in place, all of which take time and money and energy. And then the third type of business is about having a growth business. Now, once you get to thinking about a growth business, it's okay, so how big, how much, why, and thinking about, it's really, really difficult. And I know this because we struggle with it, and I know that a lot of other staging businesses worldwide struggle with the growth model of a staging business, because essentially you need capital investment, because you need to be funding more furniture, warehousing, for example, far more structure, vans, so your transport you need to bring in-house if you're scaling a staging business to a growth business. You need to have capital in order to do all of that. There are very, very, very few businesses, staging businesses, I can only think one worldwide, that has actually managed a significant growth model. Now, that's not to say it's there to do, not there to do, I think it is, but where's that capital coming from? You can go out for investment capital, for example, of money that goes to investment in businesses. Probably 5% currently of the businesses that pitch for investment actually get investment, and going for a first round of investment probably takes 6 months of your life. So 6 months away from your business. So you have to have time to do all of that. And of those businesses that get investment funding, approximately 1% are female founded. There is a massive gap in investment for female founded businesses, which clearly I've got a friend that actually works in that field, and clearly there's a lot of stuff going on in there, but that's the situation currently. So, if you're going for a growth business, what does that mean? And how do you capitalize it? The staging is very capital heavy.
Yeah. And do you think, Elaine, it's possible to scale a business in a more, let's say, budget-friendly way? Do you think it's possible to scale a business by, for example, I think one of the things that really suck your money in staging is inventory, because you're always buying new furniture, new pieces all the time, whether you're reinvesting the business or you're saving some, whatever the format might be. A great chunk of the money goes to that. And we have seen more recently more businesses doing more of a furniture rental situation, whereby they get the furniture from a furniture rental company, they add a markup whenever they can and however much they can, but they don't really hold stock in that format. But growth like that is very limited, because there's only so much markup you can add. You can probably grow if you're planning on growing, I don't know, in 30 years. But do you think, is there a solution for that? Because I think it's super nice to say, yay, I'm going to grow my business, I'm going to scale my business, but I don't really have much money to invest. Is that even possible with staging?
I don't think so. honestly, if you're renting, we've looked at this always around, I've spent a lot of time crunching numbers around this, and I think there's very much a ceiling to growth if you're using other people's stock. So if you're renting from a third party, because exactly as you say, Paloma, the people that you're renting from are making the margin. You can only put on a very limited margin in order to be able to still be competitive, to still be getting business in. And you also don't have the control over the business. The control is with the people that you're renting furniture from. They control the quality of stock, they control the timing to a large extent, and they control the cost. So I think it's a very limited model for growth. You might be able to produce quite a reasonable lifestyle business, but I think in terms of a growth business, pretty well impossible.
Yeah. And I think even if you do obviously decide to go down the route of getting an investor or saving money, using your own money and investing that in the business, there's quite some heavy planning to be done before you really jump in. And because as we've seen, as you've mentioned, there's this company that went into liquidation just this week that we all thought was doing super well, because, well, that's social media world at the end of the day, isn't it? We all think everyone is doing amazing, and most really are, but sometimes not really like that. And something must have gone wrong there. We don't know what it was. But I think bottom line here is to really keep in mind that having a business and then thinking of growing a business require a lot of planning.
Yeah.
And even if you do have the money, it still requires planning. It can still go wrong because you might fail in other aspects, or you might later down the line decide that I don't really like dealing with insurance or employing people or doing risk assessments. Or even worse, you can get into one of those situations where, for example, your employee with the finger trapping thing, it could have been worse. You could have gotten seriously injured. And because as you said, it wasn't even your fault as such. It wasn't something you guys had a risk assessment for, because it wasn't even meant to be there, because, everything that happened. But can you imagine if something more serious happened and insurance can't cover because for some reason you didn't do things the right procedure, and you end up having to pay a ridiculous amount of money to sort out the situation, and that affects the business in a way they have to shut down or to scale back massively. So there's so many things that can happen, and there's only so much preparation we can have. So obviously, the more you plan, the more chances you have.
For sure.
Right? But it's not simple, right? I think there's so many other types of businesses out there that should be a lot easier. I think I'm kind of like going off on staging.
I think also, the businesses that come in as hobby businesses doing cheap staging, kind of quick fix, cheap staging, only needing to earn pocket money out of it because it's not business. I think those businesses are very, very tricky to navigate for those businesses that do want to grow, because those businesses can come in, they can be in the industry for a year or 2 years, have a lot of fun, doing a bit of staging quite cheaply, but make a little bit of money out of it. And then they go because they get bored, or because they're not making enough money out of it, or because they get a job offer. We've seen a couple recently that have been offered jobs by estate agents, so they go off to to work for an estate agent as an estate agent. And unfortunately, those kind of businesses, those kind of people, really damage the industry because they're not credible in the long term. They're not building something that comes back into the whole industry, and they're really hard. And every industry has it, but they are really hard to navigate in a home staging world, because that is. It's a model that happens, and I've spoken to the Americans, spoken to the Australians about it as well, and it's a very common model in staging. And how you got that, I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's really, really.
Oh yeah, I've spoken to, gosh, a number of new businesses that when, just trying to find out more, because that's what we do as an association. They said, when asking, okay, what is your value proposition? What is, the core of your business? Why are you different? And they say, well, we do affordable home staging. We do cheap staging, accessible staging. And as much as that sounds amazing from a client's perspective, oh, great. I'm not going to pay much. From an industry perspective, it's very damaging, as you said, because cheap stage isn't good and good stage isn't cheap.
And there is a real feeling.
There's obviously no planning.
Yeah, there's a real feeling to that, because it's fine while you're just operating on your own.
That was exactly what
while you're operating on your own and making pocket money, it's fine. But the minute you want to grow, you can't do it with cheap staging.
No, you can't do it. So if you manage to get to a point where you start to grow with cheap staging, even though you've done your share to damage the industry, thank you very much. It'll come to a point that you can't really do that anymore. You're going to have to start shifting things around, so you can, again, employ more people, get insurance to cover all of those people, do all the risk assessments, and everything that needs to be done, no matter how much you can actually get contractors to do those things for you. But as you said, there is a ceiling.
The contractors have to be insured under your insurance. It doesn't make any difference legally. It's no different whether you're employing them.
Which reminds me, Elaine, I always try to think, whenever we have these conversations, I try to come up with questions that I believe people are asking whilst watching or listening. And I think with all of these things that we've said, people must be thinking, oh, okay, but how do I know everything that needs to be covered? Whether wanting to grow a business or just start a business, but doing it the right way and making sure that, nothing will be forgotten, or that nothing will be overseen, and that contracts and insurances and hiring people and whatever it might be is actually covered. How do I know? Is there a list? Is there a place I can go to learn these things? So here's my question to you, and I hope you know the answer that I'm thinking is the answer, because if you don't, I will answer for you. Thank you. And this wasn't planned, but honestly, I always try. I want to answer this question because I think, okay, we raised a concern. It's not a problem. It's just a polemic topic that is a concern in the industry, obviously. But how do we fix it? Where's the solution? How do we help these people? So where can people go if they want to find out more about everything that they need to do and to learn about this, to start and grow?
Well, clearly the HSA, because Paloma and I spent a lot of time in lockdown just looking at courses offered by other providers, and we were shocked, really shocked, at how few of them give really good content about the business side of staging. Far more of them gave content about staging and about marketing in particular. But the actual business side, the nitty-gritty of reading a P&L sheet, for example, or where do you go for your insurance, those things that just really didn't happen. So we created that course, didn't we? And now the HSA, Paloma very successfully runs that course and has added to it, I think, and built on that so that people do come out of that understanding that this is a business. You might be fluffing cushions or making houses look really nice, but actually at the bottom line is it's a business, and you need to have some business knowledge not to be burned in setting up a business, I think. So yeah, definitely HSA.
And I think obviously there are other providers out there. If you think HSA is not your vibe, or it's not enough, or you're not so sure, it's okay. We're not having this talk today to sell the course. It just happens. But feel free to look around, find other courses, but make sure to look for courses that will cover the business side of things, because otherwise you're doomed. It's as simple as that. If you don't get information, if you don't get education, how are you going to know what needs to be done? I've got a question here, Elaine, from Ready Set Show Rogue Belly. in markets like ours, where staging isn't common, it feels impossible to keep prices high enough. I don't know where they're from, they didn't say. So if they're still here, please go ahead and put it on the comments where you're from, because I'd be curious to hear. But yeah, I think this is a challenge, right, Elaine, especially in the UK and not, especially in places that are not the States, let's put it that way, or Canada, where staging is so popular. We still find it challenging to put our prices as we know they should be, because people still don't understand enough or don't value enough. And then there's obviously a lot of competition of small businesses, one-man bands that literally don't make any money, sometimes actually put money into from their pockets to actually get their one job, so undercutting everyone else in pricing only. So it's very challenging for you to keep the prices as you know they should be to cover your expenses and make a profit. What would you advise?
Staging any service that you're providing to a client is a mindset. If you are willing to undervalue your time and your service, then the potential client base will undervalue what you do as well. We all know how long it takes to put together an inventory for a vacant property, for example. Just the sheer time and effort that it takes to do that. Almost no stagers, an early stage, early part of their business, almost no stagers factor in any of that time. So, and we know there are courses out there. I can't tell you how shocked I've been, to learn about training courses that actually only talk about how you price relative to the cost of the furniture and the cost of delivery of that furniture. And there's nothing.
Which is one way of pricing. It's one way, but it doesn't apply to every model, every property.
It doesn't allow you. How do you as a person value your time? I charge my time out at £150 an hour. If I'm not getting paid that, I'm not getting out of bed. I don't charge my whole team's time out at that. But you have to be able to put a value on your time and build that into your pricing model. And then talk to your clients or your potential clients about the value that you're bringing to them, about the return that they're getting on their investment. Because we all know, and obviously the longer you've been in business, the more case studies that you have, but you have to capture that data. Back to my data theme again. But you have to capture that data, because if you capture the data from your stagings, then you can say, well, look, this staging cost £4,000. The pre-staging valuation on that house, and this is where you build up the relationship with your estate agent base. The pre-staging valuation on that house was, let's say for the sake of argument, was 400,000. And actually, they sold it for 420,000. So the staging cost was £4,000. So now they've made that £4,000 has now been multiplied 5 times. In other words, 500% in the return that they've now got, because now they've got £20,000 more than they would have done had they had not £20,000 more than they would have got, but £20,000 more than the estate agent was willing to list it for pre-staging. Yeah. And it's really, really important to talk about value, about return on investment, and to value your own time. If you're going in saying, well, I'm going to pitch in cheaply because otherwise I won't sell my staging service, don't sell your staging service. That's it. If you're not going to make a profit, if it's not profitable, once you've included your time, you don't have a business. You have a hobby. You have a hobby that is costing you money. A little bit like learning to fly for a hobby costs you money. If your hobby is staging and it's costing you money, if what you do, if your business is staging and it's costing you money, it's a hobby, it's not business, because it's costing you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sorry,
you're right.
I just think, hobbies cost you money. If that's what you're doing for staging, then you're costing money.
Exactly, then it's not a business, it's a hobby. The ladies were saying that they are from the States, Medford, Oregon. And they're also asking, there's another one for you, Elaine. Do you think the HSA business course will be useful for residents of the state?
Well, I think that's a really good question. I think the short answer to that is yes, because the principles are the same. So the principles around how you set up a business, there will be some differences in things like we talk about going to company's house, how you get your company on company's house. There will be differences in those things, which if we know that that some of the delegates coming onto those courses are from different areas, then actually that's something that we can research, Paloma, to find. But the fact is how you set up a company, the need for insurance, how you price, how you read a profit and loss sheet is universal. That doesn't matter.
That's universal, yeah, 100%. Yes.
Any other questions?
So, conclusion from all of this conversation, also waiting for potential new questions. Got someone from Dublin as well, just listening in. Thanks for joining. So to conclude, Elaine, home staging is super fun. It's amazing, but it's a lot of work, requires a lot of planning to have a home staging business. If you're thinking of growing it, make sure you plan it, because if you're thinking cheap staging, volume staging, that will obviously have a ceiling, because there's so much to think about, so much to take into consideration, such as insurance, overhead, employing people, risk assessment, that does add to the list of things to worry about and plan about when starting and growing a business. So bottom line is scaling the business something that you really want to do? Is it for you? And if it is, then get your hands dirty and start planning. Anything else to add to summarize?
No, I think that's exactly it. And I just think it's really important to be clear about why you're in the staging business. And if you genuinely want a business and want to grow a business, first of all, absolutely, you should say, Paloma, the planning. And secondly, where's the money coming from? Because that's really, how are you capitalising business in the first place? And how are you going to continue to capitalise it as you get bigger? Because it doesn't stop just because you buy a stock of furniture and then all that's rented out. We buy every year, we buy stock every year, simply because we run out. We're successful and we run out of stock. We have to have more stock. So how do you continue to capitalise that? Because even successful businesses have times where the cash flow is really, really low. And just thinking about that. And absolutely, my one thing would be, do not have a business. Do not think that you have a business if you're not charging realistically for the time that you're putting into it, because you're not. That's not a business. That's a hobby, and that isn't good for the industry.
100%. No. So go and find another hobby. Go do pottery or.
We can talk lots more, and especially other parts of the Home Staging Association courses talk about how you market yourself and how you do actually pitch to get the right level of business, and how you have those conversations. But absolutely,
I think bottom line, Elaine, is that like any other activity, other profession, you can't just wake up one day and go like, yes, I'm going to be a home stager and have my own staging business.
Because I love interiors.
It's not like that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like, if you want to become a lawyer, a doctor, or a painter, baker, you're going to find a way of learning about that and plan your way into that career and then making it happen. Home staging is no different. So it's a matter of, understanding what it is that you want to do, why you want to do it, and how you're going to do it, and find the means to support that. And by that, I mean educating yourself and planning and doing the homework, doing what you need to do. And obviously, HSA is here to support, to offer information, guidance. Elaine as well, not only as the amazing founder of Lemon Lime Interiors and Stageflow and best-selling author, but also as part of the HSA board, and also as a coach as well, right? So if anyone wants to talk to you one-on-one and get tips on how to really tackle this, why not? I'm not sure if you're taking any coaching clients anymore, but you're always there for a cup of coffee.
And I've got capacity at the moment. I've got a couple of coaching clients at the moment that I'll take kind of 4 or 5 at any one time, and how I structure that. I'm more than happy if anybody is at a stage of wanting to invest in one-to-one coaching in their business, then yes, just get in touch.
Okay, so how can people find you then if they want to get in touch with you or find out more about your business? Well, I know that. Well, you can go on to lemonandlimeinteriors.co.uk and contact Elaine from there. Come on,
lemonandlimeinteriors.co.uk. That's the website. I'm Elaine at lemonandlimeinteriors.co.uk, and we're on all the normal social media. So Instagram, you can find me on LinkedIn. Normal channels really. So, but yeah, absolutely get in touch.
Fantastic. We've got a question from Victoria from West End Styling. Would be really interested in the coaching, would love more information. So yeah, Victoria, if you could send an email to Elaine, that would be great. So Elaine at lemonandlimeinteriors.co.uk, and yeah, she'll look after you very well, I am sure. Very quick notes, HSA wise, forum tickets have started selling. So if you want to come to the amazing Home Staging Forum on the 17th November in London, tickets are available. Elaine, you're coming, right?
I'm invited.
Have you penciled it in? You better. Of course you are. How could I ever put something like this together without you? You're one of the main reasons why I do this thing.
Of course, I'll be there.
To see you again and spend a whole day with you.
And what are those Prosecco taps? You know those Prosecco taps?
Those Prosecco taps. Yeah. I still need to get one of those installed here in my home. Yeah, working on that. Also, awards admissions opening tomorrow. So if you want to apply for the Home Staging Awards 2022 and maybe become the next Home Staging Award winning company or professional, by all means, do apply. And I've noticed we've got a few people from Ireland here. I saw that Breda has just joined us. Hi, Breda. I will. I do, right, Elaine? So yeah. So I will be in Dublin in October, on the 21st October, and there's also a link in our bio for tickets for this event. I'll have a small talk followed by networking and some nibbles for us to talk home staging in Ireland and to really network with people that are local, that are doing staging near Dublin and area. So by all means, if you are from Ireland and you're going to be near Dublin on the 21st October, come and say hello. It would be nice to see you. Breda, you need to come. So I'll send you more details as well. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. I hope it was useful, informative, and productive. If you have any questions, do get in touch with me, the team at HSA, or Elaine. Make sure to have a look at our bio on Instagram. We've got all the useful links for events and courses, or just head over to our website, www.homestaging.org.uk. You can find courses, resources, information. If you're not a member yet, consider joining so you can have access to several other things that are included in the membership, such as contract templates, quote templates, proposals, everything that you might need, including referrals for insurance companies that might be able to help you with all of this amazing, super exciting things we discussed today. Elaine, thanks again for your time.
Thanks for having me. Lovely to be with everybody.
Always a pleasure. Always learning something new, and yeah, we shall be in touch and bringing new things very, very soon. So Elaine, thanks again. Thanks everyone for watching and listening, and I'll see you all very soon.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Elaine.
Bye.
See you later.